Hello, boys and girls. This is Pa. Are you ready for another bedtime story? You are? Lovely. Have you brushed your teeth? Well done. And I see you've got your jammies on. Now grab Ted. That's it. Hop onto the bed. Get under those blankets and snuggle in as we get ready for another bedtime story with Pa. Tonight's story is the Moonlight train to the secret meadow. The farm was quiet by the time the moon rose. Not silent, never silent, but filled with all the soft sounds that belong to the countryside at night. Crickets sang in the grass. Frogs croaked down by the creek. Somewhere far across the paddocks, a sheep gave a sleepy little baa. The gum trees whispered in the breeze, and the stars shone bright over the farmhouse roof. Inside, everyone was getting ready for bed. Nan was folding blankets by the fire. Pa was checking the doors and turning off the lights. Auntie Cass was carrying sleepy Elsie down the hallway. Uncle Jizz was making sure that the dog had settled in for the night. Auntie Lucy was rinsing out the last of the mugs in the kitchen, whilst Uncle Jacob stood on the veranda, looking out at the moonlit paddocks. Addi, Mila, Poppy, Louie, Sonny and Jax were supposed to be in their pyjamas, but they were still awake, very awake. "Can't sleep," whispered Mila. "Me either," said Addi and Poppy. "There's too much moonlight," said Poppy, peeking through the window. "It feels like something is about to happen," Mila said. And as if the night had been listening, a long, low whistle floated across the farm. Ooh. The children froze. Sonny looked at Jax. Jax looked at Addi. Addi looked at Pa. "Pa," she whispered, "was that a train?" Pa stood very still, his hand resting on the back of the chair. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. "Well," he said, as if he'd been expecting this all along, "I do believe it was." "But there aren't any train tracks on the farm," said Mila. Pa reached for his hat. "There are," he said, "but only on certain nights." That was all it took. Within moments, slippers were swapped for gumboots, dressing gowns were thrown over pyjamas, and everyone hurried outside into the cool silver moonlight. The air smelled of damp grass and eucalyptus. And there, just beyond the old machinery shed, was something that definitely had not been there before. A train. Not a big noisy train like the ones in the city. This one was small and shining and beautiful, with carriages painted midnight blue and silver stars along the sides. Tiny lanterns glowed in every window. Steam puffed gently from the little engine, curling up into the cold night air like dragon breath. Across the front, in curling gold letters, were the words Moonlight Express. Louie gasped. Elsie clapped sleepily from Auntie Cass's arms. Poppy put both hands over her mouth. "It's real," whispered Sonny. A conductor stepped down from the train. He was tall and thin and wore a navy coat with silver buttons, polished boots, and a cap that sparkled faintly as if stitched with stardust. He gave a small bow. "Good evening," he said. "I'm here to collect the Malloy and the Greenwood family." "The whole family?" asked Jax. "The whole family," said the conductor. "You've been invited on a very special journey." "To where?" asked Addi. The conductor smiled. "To the secret meadow." Now, nobody knew exactly where the secret meadow was. Pa seemed to have heard of it, of course. Nan said she'd once been told stories about it as a little girl, but none of the children had ever seen it, and that made it all the more exciting. "All aboard," called the conductor. The family climbed onto the Moonlight Express. Inside, the train was even more magical than it looked from outside. The seats were soft and velvet green. Golden lamps glowed above their heads. There were tiny shelves filled with books, baskets of warm scones, and thick woolen blankets folded neatly by each window. The children pressed their noses to the glass as the train gave a soft choo, 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 choo. Then with a little lurch, it began to move. The Moonlight Express rolled away from the farmhouse and into the moonlit paddocks. Only somehow, as it travelled, the farm began to change. The fences seemed to glow silver. The creek shone like a ribbon of glass. The gum trees grew taller and softer and shimmered as though they were dusted with frost. They passed fields of moonflowers that only opened at night. They rolled by a hill where sleepy kangaroos lay beneath the stars. They crossed a narrow bridge over water so still it reflected the whole sky. Inside the carriage, everyone was quiet. It felt like the kind of quiet you keep for beautiful things. Elsie curled up against Auntie Cass and sucked her thumb. Mila and Poppy shared a blanket and pointed at all the stars through the window. Sonny and Jax tried to count how many rabbits they saw hopping through the grass. Louie sipped warm milk from a little cup the conductor brought him. Addi sat beside Pa, watching the moon race along with them. Pa she whispered. What's at the secret meadow? Pa smiled. Well, he said, I've heard it's a place where lost things are found. Like what? Addi asked. Oh, all sorts of things. Lost songs, lost laughter, lost wishes, even lost courage sometimes. Addi thought about that for a while as the train rolled softly through the night. At last, the conductor returned. We're nearly there, he said. The train slowed. Outside, the paddocks gave way to a wide open meadow, ringed with silver birch trees. The grass glowed pale beneath the moonlight, and hundreds of tiny lights floated above it like stars that had drifted down from the sky. The Moonlight Express came to a stop. The family stepped out onto the grass. The grass was beautiful. It smelled like clover and fresh rain. The breeze was soft and warm, even though it was night. The little floating lights danced around them in slow circles, brushing gently against their sleeves and hair like glowing feathers. What are they? Whispered Poppy. Lost wishes, said the conductor, waiting to be found. In the middle of the meadow stood an old wishing tree, its branches wide and silver, its trunk covered in little carved hearts and stars. Beneath the tree sat a tiny wooden box for each member of the family. Each one had a name written on the lid. Addi, Elsie, Mila, Poppy, Louie, Sonny, Jax. Even Pa, Nan, Auntie Cass, Uncle Jezza, Auntie Lucy, and Uncle Jacob had one too. Open them, said the conductor. The family gathered beneath the wishing tree and lifted their lids. Inside each box was something different. Addi found a tiny silver bell that chimed when she held it, and somehow it made her feel brave and bright inside. Elsie found a soft moon-shaped pebble warm as a hand. Mila found a ribbon of pale blue silk that shimmered like morning sky. Poppy found a little notebook with blank pages that smelled faintly of roses, as if waiting to be filled with ideas. Louie found a smooth wooden whistle shaped like a bird. Sonny found a polished stone with a lightning bolt through the middle. Jax found a tiny compass whose needle glowed gold. Pa found an old pocket watch that had stopped years ago, and somehow, in the meadow, had begun ticking once more. Nan found a silver thimble engraved with stars. Auntie Cass found a little golden spoon. Uncle Jezza found a pocket knife with a carved wooden handle. Auntie Lucy found a music box, and Uncle Jacob found a lantern no bigger than his palm. What do they do? Asked Louie. The conductor looked up at the wishing tree. They remind you of something you already carry inside, he said. bravery, imagination, kindness, curiosity, patience, hope. Whatever has been forgotten, the meadow helps you find it again. The family stood quietly beneath the tree, each holding their treasure. No one wanted to rush the moment. The meadow felt full of peace, full of possibility, full of things too lovely to explain properly. At last the conductor checked his watch. "It's time," he said gently. The children gave a disappointed little sigh, but they climbed back aboard the Moonlight Express with their treasures tucked safely in their pockets and hands. The journey home felt even softer than the journey there. The train rocked gently from side to side. The lanterns glowed low and golden. The stars outside blurred sleepily across the windows. One by one, the children drifted off. Elsie first, then Louie curled up against Pa's side, then Mila and Poppy beneath their blanket, then Sonny and Jax, their heads tipped together, and finally Addi, still holding her silver bell. When the train pulled back into the farmyard, the moon was low and pale in the sky. The conductor helped everyone down. The children were still half asleep, carrying their treasures like dreams in their hands. "Will we see you again?" Addi asked. The conductor smiled. "When the moon is bright and the night is ready." Then he climbed aboard, tipped his hat, and the Moonlight Express gave one last soft whistle. Ooh, ooh. It rolled across the paddock, growing fainter and fainter, until it disappeared into the silver mist. By morning, there were no train tracks to be found, no engine, no carriages, nothing at all except the ordinary farm, waking in the sunshine. But on the bedside table inside the farmhouse sat a silver bell, a moon pebble, a blue ribbon, a little notebook, a bird whistle, a shining stone, a golden compass, and all the other treasures from the secret meadow. Proof that the journey had been real. And from that day on, when any of the family felt worried, lost or unsure, they only had to hold their little treasure in their hand to remember what the meadow had returned to them. A little courage, a little wonder, a little hope. And if, on some bright moonlit night, you hear the faint whistle of a train drifting across the paddocks, listen carefully. It might just be the Moonlight Express on its way to the secret meadow. Good night, children. Sweet dreams. And don't forget, Pa loves you.